Hello, I'm Ryan. This is Jeremy. Today
Hello.
We're talking about Suspiria and its upcoming remake. Jeremy, immediate thoughts?
Well, full disclosure, I just saw Suspiria last night. It's third or fourth time I've seen it. I don't really know. Yeah, it was good. I liked it. I liked it before. Soundtrack's great. The way it's shot is great. The color palette is awesome. Dario Argento is just a unique filmmaker. Yeah.
Well, I'm going to agree mostly. I think Suspiria might be a little overhyped. As a pretty big Argento fan, it's not my favorite of his work, but I think it's a fantastic film. I also recently saw it. I was able to see it in theaters with the 35mm print that they found in some old cinematheque in Italy in a basement.
That's right. And they restored it. And
they did. They staged it at the Sea Film Center in Denver. Mm-hmm. My fiance and I went, and it was interesting. It was still in Italian, so they had the subtitles, and they had to actually perform the subtitles in real time. It was a really cool way to watch the film. Other thing that I wanted to mention about that particular time that I viewed it was definitely my favorite time that I viewed Suspiria, mm-hmm. and I liked it more then than I've ever liked it before. And I think a big part of that is the sound design and the soundtrack by Goblin.
Yeah.
They had the film audio up so fucking loud in that theater that my fiance had her ears covered almost the entire time. It was ear-piercing, it was frightening, and that made the original score that much more intense, and I think it did a lot of favors to the movie.
Yeah.
It gave that whole movie a real sense of uneasiness. Mm-hmm. It was unsettling, mm-hmm. and it made the whole film feel like that, as opposed to just looking like that. It looked, sounded, and felt like that. And I think that the movie should be viewed in that way. I think that the if you're going to watch it at home, turn the sound up really high. Mm-hmm. It did a lot for the film.
One more thing I wanted to say about the soundtrack that I noticed, and I don't know if you noticed this, but there was a theme throughout the entire film, mm-hmm. That definitely does not happen anymore, mm-hmm. in film. That was definitely a 30s, 40s, 50s kind of thing where there was one kind of main theme throughout it there would be different movements and different ways that they would harken back to it musically. And they didn't necessarily do that, but like when they really wanted to ramp up the tension, that's when they played this theme.
Yeah.
And it sounded reminded me of
Tubular Bells.
Yes.
Yeah.
Also like Halloween, kind of the melody, and also
sure, yeah.
the theme from the first Phantasm.
Okay. Oh yeah. Yeah.
And it just really, the music just totally set the mood for the movie.
It does. It's a huge part of the film.
Yeah. And so without that, and without the way it's shot, without the colors, it's just another Italian horror / giallo movie. Maybe that's another thing.
I'm going to argue. So actually, when I saw this recently at the Sea Film Center, it was put on by the Denver Film Society.
Okay.
And there was a guy who was doing he was the guy that was actually running the subtitles.
Okay.
So he viewed the film many times, and he made the argument that it is not a giallo. I'm going to make the argument that it absolutely is. Just because there are supernatural elements, mm-hmm. in a film or supernatural themes, it does not mean that it's not a giallo. It fits all of the other form factors, mm-hmm. right? To me, it has many themes of a giallo. It has many things that are similar to some of the other giallo films that Argento has made, like Deep Red and Tenebrae, which I both feel are both better films.
Okay.
But it has similar themes. Just because it has a supernatural element to it, the witches, I don't think that disqualifies it as a giallo. It's not a pure supernatural film.
No.
It's not just a scare movie. It's not just a haunted house movie. There are murders. Mm. There's death. There's gore. Nowadays, obviously, that's mostly absent in ghost stories.
Yeah.
It's, scary ghost. It's, one of two things happen. Paranormal investigator goes to house, gets scared, the end. Or husband and wife lose child in car accident, move to the country, there's a ghost, the end. Mm-hmm. And this film does not follow those in any sort of fashion. It really feels like a giallo as it moves along. And the whole throughout most of the film, you're not aware that there are supernatural forces at work here. If you are a giallo watcher, you are watching it thinking that that's what it's going to lead to. Some killer is loose. You know, you could easily think, oh, it's the butler, whatever that guy is, the really weird guy that the, you know, character's like, oh, he's the ugly one, you know.
He doesn't understand you, only speaks in Romanian, but he does understand what people are saying.
Yeah, he feels terrible the whole time.
Yeah.
I feel terrible for him, and but I mean, so there's a really unique look to this film too, and that's the other thing that I'm sure both of us are going to want to bring up is we talked about the score, and I think the score is a character in the film. It's a huge part of the film, and without it, I don't know what you're left with. Similarly, the way the film is shot is very Argento.
Yeah.
The color themes, I think we had mentioned in previous discussion, you said, you know, maybe we don't know what these colors are supposed to represent. Maybe sometimes we do, maybe sometimes we don't. Yeah. There are things that are left to interpretation with work that's gone into color themes and palettes and color palettes. And, you know, I think there's a lot to this film in regards to the way it sounds and it looks that plays a big role in what this film is. And a lot of people can say things like style over substance. I think that is one of the weakest arguments people can make for films. People made that against The Neon Demon, which I think is the best film of 2016.
They said the same thing about Drive, and they say the same thing about movies that...
Oh, it looks too good, but there's not much story there. Well, as an avid horror exploitation giallo fan, I like when people are able to tell a simplistic story that keeps me interested. And the way they do that is through tone, through character development. There are a lot of things you can do. But just because you're telling a simple story doesn't mean that you're choosing style over substance. And style can play a big role in what the substance of a film is.
Exactly.
So I think that that's a really weak argument. I think a lot of what Argento has chosen to do in his films is to use his style to help tell a story. Similar, and you know, guys like Nicholas Winding Refn nowadays are doing that same thing.
I would say that he has had a big influence on guys like Winding Refn, on guys like Solnier, who they're more stylistic. Fede Alvarez is another example. They have more style. It's not just, here's the story.
Speaking of Alvarez, I don't mean to interrupt you, but I want to mention really quick, did you know he is co-writing and directing a Labyrinth sequel?
A sequel?
Yes.
No, because the Goblin King?
He's not going to be in it. They're not going to try and replace him. Hey, you know what? When I heard there's an Evil Dead remake coming, I said, no. I went to the theaters that evening on opening night saying, no, I'm going to hate this. And I liked it a lot. And I did too. You know, we saw Don't Breathe Together in theaters.
Yeah, we did.
And we both really liked it.
Yes.
I think you liked it up front. I liked it up front, but it took me a second viewing to say, okay, I think this is a really good film. And I have a lot of faith in Fede Alvarez.
Yeah, I do too.
Regardless, yes, a little off topic there.
So what we're left with is this movie that has been restored
in 4K. That release actually is coming out in December on Blu-ray, the 4K release. They did show that a couple of nights after the 35mm print at the C Film Center, and while I was tempted to go, they did offer, I believe, $3 off ticket price if you had gone to the 35mm print as well. I was tempted to go see it again. And, you know, there was a little hipster kid next to me who was trying to say that Tenebrae was his favorite of Argento's films and clearly had never seen Tenebrae. And he mentioned, what you got to see is the 4K restoration because that's the one. And I knew he was lying because there's no way he'd seen it unless he's like, you know, I don't know, from bloodydisgusting.com or something before.
Yeah. Maybe he was, you never know.
Yeah, sure. There's a possibility.
They're everywhere.
I'm pretty sure he was making it up. But without even seeing the 4K restoration, because I have not yet, so full disclosure, I have not seen the 4K restoration yet. I have it pre-ordered. I'm excited to get the set. I'm really looking forward to that. But I don't know how you could possibly convince me that seeing the 4K restoration version of Suspiria is going to be a better experience than seeing an actual original 35mm print of the film.
You can't, because there's something I think lost. And digital film is fine. Like, I have no problem with it. But to be able to go into the theater and see it on a projector, the way the filmmaker wanted you to see it, especially someone who knows what he's doing, like Argento. I mean, you can say whatever you want about his films, and I'm not a huge fan, but he knows what he's doing. He has a vision, and when he sets out to make a movie, that vision is right there. And it
Maybe
is
not in later years.
well, I'm not familiar with his later catalog so much. There was
Jennifer.
Was that?
Yeah.
No, the one that he did he did the Masters of Horror, didn't he?
Yeah, that's Jennifer.
Oh, is that Jennifer?
Yeah,
Okay.
that was pretty legitimately creepy. I thought it wasn't bad. It didn't look like Argento. It didn't feel very Argento. I mean, there were elements, but I still enjoyed it. There are some other later things that I haven't seen. He actually made a film called Giallo. I don't think he has the same. I mean, it happens to all filmmakers, right? Can you name a filmmaker that's flawless?
Other than well, even Kubrick was he did Eyes Wide Shut was his last movie, and maybe it was because he was
Barry Lyndon. I mean, he's not perfect.
No,
he's a genius. He's brilliant.
Yeah,
wonderful filmmaker, but he's not perfect. Nicholas Winding Refn. I know that a lot of people that are probably watching this are going to heavily disagree with that statement, but I think Winding Refn is pretty close. I haven't seen anything of his where I'm like, that didn't do it for me.
No, I've enjoyed every movie I've seen of his. And you want to talk about a thin story and style over substance.
Valhalla Rising.
Valhalla Rising. I was going to say Valkyrie Rising.
I thought that was a fantastic
It was great.
Yeah.
And there was hardly any dialogue.
Sure.
There was hardly any story. It was just guys going from one place to another to try to do stuff.
Yeah.
And it didn't matter because you were engrossed in the characters.
Yeah, right.
Even the characters you didn't like.
It's not only is it a character study, but I think it's a study of how we interact with the world, and there's a lot we could say about that film, but
we'll get into
that later. But in regards to whether or not Suspiria remake is necessary, I would say that I want to play devil's advocate really bad here, but I can't. No, it's not necessary. It's completely unnecessary. I think the only thing it's necessary for is to stroke some other director's ego who thinks, hey, I'm good enough, I can make a Suspiria remake. Because one thing I do want to mention about this remake is it's not really one of those big Hollywood... it's not like, hey, Blumhouse came through and said, it's not like... It's not like Warner Brothers came out and said, hey, we need money, let's remake Suspiria. I mean, that's not what happened here. The filmmaker, which I'm going to bring out my phone here because I don't recall the gentleman's name, Luca Guadagnino. I'm probably butchering his name. We've looked up some of the films he's done. We're not familiar with him.
No, not at all.
I'm not familiar with any of his films. I've seen that he's made an erotic drama, a coming-of-age drama, and a psychological thriller drama.
And that was the last movie he made, and most of the cast from that movie will return for the Suspiria remake, which, if I'm not mistaken, is going to be filmed in Italy. He is Italian, obviously, if you couldn't tell by his name. And I think that will work to his advantage. I don't... Because growing up in that environment with that rich of a film history, I think definitely can play to your advantage as a filmmaker and also just a film watcher.
Sure.
There's a lot that... If you talk to American film directors, if you talk to American filmmakers, or just, someone who's an avid watcher of films, they can see the influence that the old Italian movies had on American cinema, had on European cinema.
Huge. I mean, and I have two genre of film that I am absolutely in love with. You've got the Italian giallo and the American slasher. If you asked me today, what is your preference between the two, I'd probably go with American slasher.
Yeah.
Less stylish.
Yeah.
Not quite as artistic, but I kind of like the brutality and the how raw they are. And what can I say? I'm a fan of exploitation, and those were definitely exploiting some things in the 80s that they were trying to get to. I do want to mention for the Suspiria remake, Jessica Harper she's returning. She's not returning to the same role. It's not a sequel, but she is going to be in it. She's going to play a small role. I don't know what that is. Hit Girl? I forget what Chloë...
She's she's Hit Girl.
That's
how I know her as.
She
was Carrie, but nobody cares.
Right.
She's Hit Girl.
Yeah, she's going to be in it. There are some parts of that film that are not shocking to us anymore in the year 2017.
No.
But back in 77, I'm sure they were quite shocking. That, you know, it's not exactly the opening sequence, but in the first 10 minutes of the film, when one of the characters leaves the dance school, goes to a friend's apartment, and, you know, killer comes. And that whole scene is fantastic. It's a little over the top. There's, you know, obviously you see the heart getting stabbed itself. You know, there's also the scene at the end, the, you know, undead coming back, and pins in the eyes, and the you know, the witch, and it's a great sequence for me. I really enjoy that final sequence where she's kind of coming down that hallway and she's figuring it out. And you've got the I don't know what you want to call them, like the house workers or the dance house workers that are kind of in the kitchen, you know, chatting amongst themselves, and she's kind of trying to sneak through. That whole last 15-minute sequence just really works for me. And the music is so important to that. The color palette is so important to that. That I don't know how you recreate that.
You can't. Well, and the whole movie's building up to that. The whole movie is you mentioned the first 10 minutes, and then there's that scene in the middle where the guy's dog goes crazy and kills him.
That's a frightening scene.
We forgot to say spoilers. But anyway, spoilers. So there's those scenes that are peppered throughout. And there's a couple of jump scares. There's a couple of things that happen. But for the most part, it's just building up the tension. And a scene like that with the dog, it's just like, shit, is that what's going on? And you're kind of not confused, but you're kind of like, oh wow. And then it keeps going, and then the last 10, 20 minutes of the film,
kind of all hell breaks loose.
That's what the whole film is leading up to.
It really is.
And so
it's a fantastic sequence.
It is. And so with the music and with the colors and with all of that plays into the whole lead up and the building of tension. And if it's like remaking Psycho. I mean, it's just why.
Are you saying we should have gotten Vince Vaughn to act in this film?
It wouldn't have hurt. No, I mean it's when the sequences work, and when you have something from a filmmaker in his prime who is not only using what has come before him and influenced him, but is also making an influential film. Because I think, like it or hate it, Suspiria is influential. I mean, you can look at horror movies beyond that in the States, and beyond that in Italy, and how he not only influenced all the directors that we really, really love, you know, because all those guys, they watched their movies. They watched each other's movies.
Oh, sure.
And, you know, John Carpenter probably watched Argento movies. I mean, Romero watched Argento movies. They worked a lot together.
And some guys that are less mentioned that I really, really enjoy have worked with Argento in the past. In Michele Soavi. Who did The Church, who did Della Morte. He did...
Which was one of Scorsese's favorite films from the 90s.
No kidding.
Yep.
Don't blame him.
It's great.
One of my favorite films is Stage Fright Aquarius. Yeah. I think it's this really great kind of almost mix between American slasher and Italian giallo. I think it's a great film. I think it's really well shot. And, I believe Argento... He didn't produce that, did he?
I don't think so, but I mean...
Argento has produced some other Italian filmmakers' films, like Lamberto Bava's Demons.
And Demons 2.
And Demons 2.
And Demons 3.
The Ogre.
Oh, is that what it's called?
Yeah, I've got it back here somewhere.
Okay.
But I think there are a couple of films that are known as Demons 3.
Okay.
Actually,
okay.
I think The Church
is known as
Demons 3, but then there's Demons 3, The Ogre. Regardless.
We could go for hours talking about what...
There's no specific connection to some of my other favorite Italian filmmakers in, you know, Fulci, Bruno Mattei, Claudio Fragasso, and some of those guys who make schlock. Argento's not known for schlock.
No, but he was definitely... I mean, you look at a Fulci movie or even a Bruno Mattei movie, and you can tell that they were influenced by Argento. But it's
watch the New York Ripper and try and tell me that.
But it's like an Argento movie, but on steroids. It's every little momentary thing in Suspiria where it's like, that's a bit over the top. Multiply it by 100, you're not even close.
And then you got a Fulci film.
Yeah, maybe. But I don't know. Going back to there's just this, and I'm not the first one to mention this, and neither are you, and I know we've had many conversations about how they're just trying to do things based on name recognition and not giving a voice to an actual filmmaker. And unfortunately, instead of this particular director, whoever he is who's doing the remake, I've since forgotten his name.
Again,
yeah. He has a voice. He has made movies. I don't know anything about them, but he has made original movies.
He has quite a few.
And he's had this career, and maybe he views it as, this is going to be my breakout because it's a known property, because people know Suspiria.
We could be off base on this too. There's a chance. I mean, we're stupid Americans. There's only so much we know of the rest of the world, right?
Yeah.
I don't know what his level of success is in France, is in Italy.
No,
right?
I have no idea.
I do know he's made English films. I do know he made a French-Italian film.
Okay.
So I mean, this guy has had some level of success.
Yeah.
He's no slouch. He's no unknown. He's not like a first-time guy.
Yeah.
Like Fede Alvarez was with Evil Dead.
Exactly.
But I don't know how qualified this guy is to do a Suspiria remake. I don't know how qualified anyone is to do a Suspiria remake.
How many movies are not like based on other movies, but are just like
clear inspiration?
Yeah, exactly. Like,
dude, I mean, it happens over and over again, right?
Yeah.
You've got Super 8 is obviously inspired by Goonies.
Yeah.
You've got Stranger Things is obviously inspired by It.
Yeah.
I mean, you've got these things that are clearly inspired by other things that, even some works that could be considered possibly derivative.
Yeah.
But they're still new works, right?
Yeah.
And I think that in this case, I've heard that the director wants to tell a story that's about a mother-daughter relationship. I don't really know how that's going to play into the realm of Suspiria, and it doesn't really need to play into the realm of Suspiria. I don't know why you're going to tell the same story but put this additional twist on it. I mean, hey, it's your own thing. Make it the way you want to. I'd rather them remake the movie that tells a different story than doing what they did with Psycho, which is just, essentially a shot-for-shot remake.
Yeah.
But we've also heard, okay, that this is not going to have the color palette. It's not going to be a colorful film.
Yeah.
Well, that's a character.
Yeah.
Then we've got, okay, Thom Yorke is doing the soundtrack. I previously thought just Radiohead. Apparently I can't tell the difference if there is one.
There's not.
I'm not a big fan. I don't... Goblin has something special that really played well into film. I don't know if Radiohead has that, or Thom Yorke. He's interesting. I've heard some pieces of music from him that are interesting. I think he thinks outside the box. I don't think he's a particularly talented musician. But I don't know if that is going to play well with the themes of Suspiria. Now, from what I understand, you're telling me we're remaking Suspiria. It's not going to be very colorful. It's about a mother-daughter relationship, and Thom Yorke is going to be doing the soundtrack. That to me does not sound like Suspiria whatsoever.
That's 3 strikes right there.
Yeah.
I mean, it's because again, it's not. Suspiria is what he set out to do in making the movie. Is what he set out to do, and he did it. It's done. Suspiria is done.
It's finished. It's a complete work. I've seen it.
Yeah.
I like it. It's done.
There are those movies that if you look back on, I can't think of any examples right now because my mind's blank, but that, hey, maybe we can go back and take a look at and maybe tell a different story or tell it in a different way and maybe make it better or make it something else.
Sure.
That's happened. Hollywood, this isn't a new...
I can think of an example right now.
Go ahead.
And I know this is a divisive one.
Yeah.
But I'm going to say I didn't think it could be done either, so I've been wrong before. So I will give the Suspiria remake the benefit of the doubt.
Yeah,
I don't want them to make it, but I will give it the benefit.
Well, they're gonna
do it regardless of what I say. So, when the Evil Dead remake was announced, I was very hesitant, and I said, this movie does not need to be remade. Here's the thing about Evil Dead. The reason we like it so much is mostly a fluke. It's an accident. There are themes and things about that film that we can like that they did well. There are things about that film that they didn't really pull off, and part of its charm is in that.
Yeah.
Now, I thought that's an impossible thing to recreate.
Yeah.
Of course, I guess Fede Alvarez was smart enough and said, yeah, it is, so this is what I'm going to do.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought it was a great, gory, fun film.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't straight ahead Evil Dead. It wasn't a perfect movie, but it's definitely worthwhile.
Yeah.
And so I was wrong. So I've been wrong before. I'll give it the benefit of the doubt. I'm not looking forward to it.
Mm-hmm.
Will I see it? Yeah, I will. I mean,
well, I don't know how it came about, but the original people who made the movie, at least the three most important people who made the movie, were also attached to the Evil Dead movie.
that's a good point. That's a very good point. Robert Tapper, Sam Raimi, Bruce Campbell were all involved.
Yep. To what level, I don't know, but they were signing off and they let him do his thing, but they were there to...
That's true. They put their trust in the guy and they said, hey, I think this is the guy that can do it. Dario Argento did not handpick Luca something. I forget his name already.
Yeah.
He did not handpick this director. He did not say, hey, I think this is the guy that can do a good remake of Suspiria. He said, I don't think you should do it.
Yep.
Paraphrasing, of course. So,
well, and he doesn't, which unfortunately happens to a lot of filmmakers, is... And songwriters, artists, a lot of people, more so in the past than now, maybe even now too, when they make something that's artistic and creative, they don't have the rights to this.
No.
They sell that away, and so he does not have... What?
Hellraiser.
Yeah, exactly. They sell it to make either a quick buck to pay the rent, or they do it because Hellraiser, Clive Barker...
Studio retains rights.
Yeah, he made that movie so he could break out into Hollywood or into the British film industry. Mm-hmm. Didn't really work out in his favor. We can see where he is now. I'm sure he's not happy with what happened, but he found his own path.
Sure.
And he has the rights to the things that came after that, which is good for him. But Argento doesn't have the rights to this.
No.
A lot of these old filmmakers, they don't have the rights to their stuff.